Satchidanandarupaya Vishvotpatyadihetave Tapatraya Vinashaya Shri Krishnaya Vayam Numaha. Janmadyasya yatonvayadi tarataschaarteshva bhignaswarat Tene brahmahradaya adikavaye muhyanti yatsurayaha Tejo vari mridam yatha vinimayo yatra trisargo mrisha Dhamna svena sada nirastakuhakam satyam param dhimahi Dharma projita ketavotra paramo nirmatsaranam satam Vedyam vastavamatra vastu shivadam tapatrayon mulanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kim va parerishwaraha Sadyo hridyavarudhyate trakritibihi Shushushubhistatkshanat. Hari Om, and greetings from Niagara Falls. Pujya Swami Chinmayananda, or devotedly known as Gurudev, he experienced Mahasamadhi the day that his body died, on August 3rd. That day in our culture is known as Sadhana Day. A fine way to understand this is Chinmaya. Chinmaya means to be filled with awareness, to do whatever you need to recognize you are awareness. And May 8th is the day that Pujya Swami Chinmayananda's body was born. In our culture, this is known as Seva Day. A way to understand this, not Chinmaya, but mission. When I have recognized that I am awareness, then it is irresistible for me not to share the same with others. Pujya Swami Chinmayananda is an institution, not an individual. What I'm going to do for myself and for you right now is to read his inaugural words before Pujya Swami Tejomayananda's commencement of a Bhagavata Saptaha. This is in your books. It's the foreword. You can read along with me. In either case, listen carefully. Try to feel that you're in this celebration, that Pujya Gurudev is at the podium speaking, and Pujya Swami Tejomayananda is sitting about to teach what we've been experiencing for almost 124 hours. As you're listening and feeling, be moved by gratitude. We do enough of being moved by sorrow, tears of sorrow. Bhagavan Krishna, right in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, his first teaching is, don't cry. Don't be sad. Your nature's joy. Why would you practice being otherwise? And isn't Pujya Swami Chinmayananda's motto for our kids, which really means all of us, keep smiling? I begin. Friends, one of the greatest miracles in history is the endless history of Hinduism. Hinduism is the mother of all religions and philosophy from the Vedic period until today. Though we may carp at it at this moment because of our total ignorance, even today we are Hindus. How did Hinduism survive? Even without the organization that churches and mosques had, it survived. In and through the ups and downs of historical periods, Hinduism remained. It is not that it did not have enemies. There were enemies outside as well as inside, trying to destroy this great culture, as is the case even today. However, it still endured. And if you say, I don't believe in Hinduism, then namaste. It is because of its elasticity that Hinduism has survived. A tree grows from its cambium. It grows from inside, from a plant to a big, healthy tree. The cambium grows from within, just as the body of a garbhini or pregnant woman extends as the child grows in it. However much she may try to cover it, it is there. In the same way, when the tree grows, the outer bark yields, but it never leaves. The bark holds the tree together. The cambium grows from within, and the bark holds it together. Sanatana Dharma, or Hinduism, has this capacity to grow and expand in order to embrace society when society grows out of proportion. It is not that we are in a Vedic society today. There have been all kinds of historical changes in the world, yet in and through them, whether in war or peace, famine or prosperity, Hinduism has held Hindus together. This capacity is rarely found in other religions, which become fanatical, do not grow, and instead crush society and refuse to allow it to grow. It is then that a revolt comes from within, and that religion perishes. How many religions have come and gone? The Greek, the Roman, the Macedonian. These cultures and religions served society and produced brilliant ages of art and literature. However, after a certain time, they collapsed. Why? They were unable to hold the public, which bore new aspirations, new imaginations, new demands, and new experiments with life. It is not that Hindus as a community never grew in such inspirations or expectations, but this dharma of Hinduism was able to expand and embrace them. One of the most salient features, of which there are plenty, of the Vedic period is that it did not have bhakti as a movement or technique. Because at that time, people were highly intellectual and had minimal desires. Therefore, extroversion was minimal, for they were all born contemplative by nature. It was simple to live in a time when greedy people had not destroyed all the trees, and nature was abundant. In the midst of all that plenty, living with minimal desires, they became highly contemplative. In all Vedic literature, there is an emphasis on contemplation. By the time of the Mahabharata war, however, man had become more egocentric and desire-ridden, wanting to fulfill his desires regardless of other community members' needs. He had become restless in mind. To tell such an individual to sit and contemplate is an impossible path. Vyasa, the great master, felt the need for societal change, so he evolved a new technique. It was not the intellectual technique of contemplation, but the technique of devotion of the heart. Thus, to contemplate on a form representing the higher reality, whether Krishna or Rama, the Puranic tradition began. Because we cannot steady our mind on one form unless it is clear and vivid in our imagination, the Puranas give exquisite explanations, descriptions, and stories of the Lord. The stories of Krishna or Rama, of how the Lord met the worldly problems that you and I face, are vividly depicted. Through these, even the average man with mental agitations, as you all, can come, sit, listen, and turn his mind to the higher. The upasana methods of the Vedic period are too difficult for today's average man to turn his attention toward or even conceive. However, the beauty of all beauties, who grew up by the banks of the Yamuna, singing his song on his flute, who made the gopis so ecstatic with his music that they went to dance around him. These are pictures we can easily conceive. These are at our level. The students in elementary schools and colleges will understand elementary physics, but if you speak to them about advanced physics, they will not understand. Yet once they have understood at the lower level, they can grow up to one day comprehend a postgraduate physics class. Applying the same technique, the mind becomes quiet through bhakti and its wanderings lessen. The steady mind then becomes an instrument for higher and consistent contemplation on the spring of life within our heart. Listening to Bhagavata is the only path at this moment available to you and me. We may read an Upanishad and intellectually understand it, but mere understanding is not the fulfillment of the Upanishads. We have to become one with that knowledge. We have to translate it into our own life. When we start trying to apply the teachings of Bhagavata in our life, we are unable to because the mind is always wandering outward. It is always extrovert. It is fascinated by the immediate pleasures of sense gratification. It is so in all hearts. There's no question of keeping it a secret. Every one of us is lusty, greedy, selfish, and egocentric. In such a condition, how are we to turn and contemplate on the higher reality? In order to drag the mind away from its wanderings and persuade it to understand that there is a greater joy, a higher happiness in contemplating on the Lord, in order to slowly turn the mind, for which even the psychiatrist does not know all the possible psychological tricks, Vyasa enchants us with Bhagavata. A sincere teacher must enchant the student to walk the path of spirituality. For example, you go to Lord Govinda in Tirupati. Why? Money is what you want. So a sincere teacher must tell you, yes, you can get that. Where? Go to Tirupati. You go 5 times and then say, Swamiji, my business is still not growing. You went to Tirupati? Yes, I went. How? In my car. The teacher replies, that is why you must walk up. Is it? 4 to 5 times. Panting, you go up. Your health improves, but the business is still not running. Swamiji, I don't think it worked. Did you walk? Yes, I walked. While walking, what were you doing? I was breathing. The teacher replies, with every step you must say, Govinda, 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 Govinda. Now what happens? You move. Your faith increases. You chant the Lord's name and go there. By that time, the business will improve because it cannot be down and out all the time. Business is down and out because you are not smart enough. By making mistakes, you become smarter. When your business becomes all right, your faith in Govinda increases. You now know the grace of Lord Tirupati. So you start going to him every month. You say, on my birth date, when my stars align, I will go there only on foot, chanting Govinda, 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 Govinda. Such a person's general health improves. His faith increases. His business flourishes. Now, what I wanted to say was, if you had told him that to improve his health, his faith must first increase, he may have said, how can I get faith? It is not available in the local market. You know, it is not like buying toothpaste. You have to, the teacher says, and tells you a technique. Throughout all the Puranas, there are hundreds and hundreds of little techniques that are fit for all of us at all levels. Such great scientific textbooks these Puranas are, which is why our forefathers read them continuously. No doubt, their mind was somewhere else. They had no ideal as such. It is true that they read, but they never thought about what they were reading. Some read and thought, who knows if the Lord will hear it or not? Some thought, the Lord will hear it and he will make a note and I will get moksha. All of you here are serious students. Swamiji, Tejomayananda, is very good in exposing the inner secrets and beauties of Bhagavata. Listen carefully. All those who are serious students, take leave from work. If they are not sanctioning your leave, stop going to the office. At the end of this Bhagavata Saptaha, you will find that the officers will say, oh, you have come back. Thank you. Sit down. These days of absence do not matter. However, listen carefully. As you listen to the stories and ideas, try to translate them into your own life. Make a serious study of it as you would a science textbook. It is a textbook for study. You shall find that the benefit you accrue will be more than the Upanishad you have studied, or the Gita you have parroted, or the Vivekji you have crammed. Much more will be the benefit, and it will be most engaging. Ha ha! There is sensuality there. There is raga and dvesha. There is cruelty and criminality. And where necessary, Krishna feels no compunction in telling beautiful lies. Beautiful lies. You may wonder, hey, is that good? Why? There is nothing wrong with those lies. People say it is a sin to lie, but ultimately, if it brings happiness to the community, you have done well. Here is a man who is ready to perform a sin in order to serve society. What is wrong in it? Is it not that the soldier is ready to die for the security of society? There's nothing wrong in it. You will thus find that at all stages, all your doubts and questions will be resolved. This textbook is not just a question and answer dialogue. It is a beautiful, living, pulsating picture of a dynamic man of perfection living amid the contours of the sorrowful world in which you and I live. You will start thinking, if he can live like that and face his challenges, then my challenges are nothing in comparison. I can also do it. Thus, draw inspiration from Bhagavata and come to live proud of your own culture as a true Hindu. Please share what you're feeling right now in the chat. Silence is wonderful too, if that's what you're feeling. You can feel him near you because he is near you. What does physicality have to do with that which is metaphysical? In question 5, Rajanimi asks, what is Narayana? Our Rishi answers, Ahetu. This was in chapter 3. In verse 40, a very special phrase is used, Uru Bhakti. Bhakti we know means devotion. Uru means complete. Earlier I used the word intense, like the word Bhishma. The idea is that one will only know Narayana if they're comprehensively devoted. So then question 6 comes. What is Shuddhata? How do I become pure enough to feel Narayana? And the Rishi answers, yoga. Through karma yoga, one will evolve to bhakti yoga or uru bhakti. In these answers, what is also shared, our Veda entices us to engage in karma for heaven. And as we engage in our karmas, we will realize that more important than outwardly heaven is inwardly heaven. By engaging, we grow. Like if you start to follow the karma kanda, that will guide you to karma yoga. It will start off just as karma, but will become karma yoga. And most recently, question 7. What is avatara? And the answer given is stapana. Stapana means to establish, to balance. Bhagavan takes avatara to help. Help individuals, help the collective. Sometimes this help is in the form of protecting. Sometimes this help is in the form of correcting. Bhagavan becomes an avatara for us. In a Bhagavata Saptaha that I listened to, facilitated by Guruji, he had shared that Bhagavan becomes an avatara for anugraha. Anugraha means to bless. Here I'm using the word stapana because what does blessing feel like? You become more balanced. And this chapter is ended with Uchuhu Narayana Balam Shakraha Tatra Asa Vismitaha. When Kamadeva, alongside the other suras, including Urvashi, they returned to Indra. And they brought all of these gifts from Rishi Naranarayana. And they were describing to Indra about the strength, the inner strength of Rishi Naranarayana. And what happened to Indra? Vismitaha. He became confused. He became scared. And why he did this is because he's so selfish that he can't understand that there could be one who is selfless. And that is such a subtle way of teaching, because Rishi Naranarayana never treated Indra with a stick. In fact, they gave him a carrot. And that was a way of Rishi Naranarayana helping Indra to realize that selflessness is possible. That was chapter 4. We continue to chapter 5. Question 8, answer 8. In the first verse, Raja Nimi is asking Rishi Chamasa. Rishi Chamasa. Bhagavantam harim prayo na bhajantyatma vittamaha tesham ashanta kamanam kanishta vijitatmanam. Bhagavantam harim praya. In reference to Bhagavan, Hari, na bhajanti atmavittamaha, all of you who are the best in knowing Bhagavan, what about those na bhajanti? What about those who don't know Bhagavan? Why? Tesham ashanta kamanam. They are lost in desire. They're lost in restlessness. Kanishta vijitatmanam. What happens to those who are out of control? Shared simply. Here are the 7 questions, and now the 8th. What is kshema? What is linga? What is maya? What is taranti? What is narayana? What is shuddhata? What is avatara? And now, in a simplified way, what is kama? What happens to those whose lives go towards kama and not narayana? The answers, we are in chapter 5, the answers are given between verses 2 and 18. 2 and 18, that is 17 verses of answers. I am highlighting verse 12. Dhanam cha dharme kaphalam yato vai jnanam savijnanam anuprashanti griheshu yunjanti kalevarasya mrityum na pashyanti duranta viryam. They, indeed, yataha, to be used, dhanam dharmaika phalam. Dhana is only to be used for dharma. Eka phala, only one purpose. By doing so, jnanam samvijnanam anuprashanti, one knows and one becomes established, and prashanti, they become desireless. Conversely, griheshu yunjanti kalevarasya, those who are living in a home. For them, their dhana is kalevarasya, they feel that their home is this body. And so all of their wealth is used for all related to this body. Mrityum na pashyanti duranta viryam. They do not see, they do not feel the intense power of time. That time is leading them to death. This teaching is very much like in the Ramayana, how those who are not reflective, they're like fish in water, not realizing the sun is evaporating that same water. Let me elaborate. The Rishi is very clear that there's two types of people who succumb to kama and do not have this bhakti to Narayana. The one that the Rishis focus on are those who are apathetic. They have access to bhakti of Narayana, but they don't follow through with that. Patanti adaha. What happens to them? They fall and fall and fall. They devolve. And right away, there is your summarized question and answer. Question 8, what is kama? Answer 8, patanti. Desire causes one to devolve. The second group of people that the Rishi brings about is those who are ignorant. This is very different. The apathetic know and don't follow through. The ignorant don't know. As an example, if I didn't follow through with bhakti, it would be out of apathy. If Shuka, our 3-year-old son, didn't, his would be out of ignorance, correct? He can't spell his own name, leave alone, pronounce Narayana. See how there's a difference between apathy and ignorance. The Rishi explains to Rajanimi, when we interact with those who are ignorant, for us to practice daya. And this is so lovely because it shows the softness of the Rishis. That if someone is ignorant, they don't devolve. We should be compassionate to them. Elaborating more, I'm going to share some of the major points in these verses. All exists, let me use the words better. All emerge, exist, and end in Narayana. That's been shared throughout. We emerge, exist, and end in Narayana. But those who are apathetic, avajananti, even though they know this, they disrespect Bhagavan Narayana. There are some who don't have the opportunity to know about Bhagavan Narayana. So, as I mentioned, we should be compassionate, but why I'm sharing this again is for us to engage in significant reflection that we can't use ignorance as an option. If we don't follow through with Uru Bhakti, it is not because of ignorance, it is because of apathy. I'm going to read a portion in English. There are, however, Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas who by birth and education have full qualification and facility to adore Sri Hari, but fail to do so, being taken up with the eulogistic declarations of the Vedas concerning rituals and heavenly felicities to be acquired through them. The implication here is, for those who feel the purpose of the Veda and the purpose of their life is the karma kanda. Rituals and results. And later on, the Rishi says, such personalities are just busy with karma, so busy that they don't have the humility to ask those who are engaged in karma yoga about how they can change their karma. And in another verse, such personalities who are busy, Dambika, Manina, Papa, they're hypocritical, they're egotistical, they're sinful, and Vihasanti, they laugh, they bully, Achyuta Priyan, those who do follow bhakti, those who do love Bhagavan. Those who succumb to kama, they spend their time. They don't invest their time. They spend their time talking about worldly plans. What am I going to do this weekend? What are we going to go do on our vacation? Worldly plans. They are blinded by privilege. Their privilege is so great that they become ungrateful. More major teachings are, their interpretation of the Veda is only for justification of their own lifestyle. Their interpretation of the Veda is not for evolution. It is just for a justification. And I told you, patanti. It is almost like they're justifying their devolving. And the rishis get into great detail. They share. Most beings have a propensity for sex, meat, and alcohol. And our Veda regulates this for those with this propensity so that eventually one sublimates this propensity for sex, meat, and alcohol. Sublimate here means you don't depend on it. But for those who succumb to kama, they justify that their lives should revolve around sex, meat, and alcohol. Those who succumb to kama, they are mritake, which means they're dead while being alive. What do we call that in Hollywood? They're zombies, correct? When a desire is so powerful, don't we become a zombie? And such mritake, they harm others. That's what a zombie does, correct? They're looking for food. And they don't realize by harming others, they're harming themselves. Because who lives in everyone's heart? Bhagavan Narayana. Those who succumb to kama, those who fall, they are not animals, but they're also not humans. That is an awesome detail. They've evolved from being animals, but they haven't evolved to being humans. They're animals in the form of humans. Our rishis have an awesome way of insulting us. It's so direct, but it makes you want to change. And finally, I'll read to you in English. These restless persons destroy their own spiritual potentialities through their mistaken notion that Vedic ritualism is the summit of wisdom. And they come to grief when they find at last that time has brought all their castles in the air into ruin, and that they have failed to achieve their ends in life. People who are absolutely alien to devotion for Vasudeva find themselves ultimately forced by time to abandon their hard-acquired wealth, house, properties, friends, and children, and they attain to regions of darkness much against their wish. Oh.